The night Serena Moretti labored alone in a freezing hospital room, her husband was 5,000 miles away in another woman's bed. Lucian Moretti knew the contractions had begun. He knew the doctors had moved Serena into delivery. He knew their son might arrive before sunrise. And still, when his most trusted man offered to put a plane on the runway, Lucian looked through the open doors of a Sicilian villa at Bianca Romano sleeping beneath white linen and said, "Not yet." Some betrayals happen in a moment of weakness. This one lasted until morning. 4 days earlier, rain had covered Manhattan in silver. Serena stood at the glass wall of the Moretti penthouse with one hand beneath her belly and watched Lucian's driver carry 3 black suitcases toward the private elevator. She was 38 weeks pregnant. Her ankles had been swollen for 12 days. Their son had settled so low that every step felt borrowed. Her doctor had said any day now, and Lucian had nodded as though due dates were recommendations made to lesser men. He came down the staircase in a charcoal suit with his collar open. At 41, Lucian still had the controlled beauty that made strangers look twice and enemies look down. He did not enter rooms so much as alter their temperature. "You should be resting," he said. "You should be staying." His eyes moved to the suitcases, then back to her. It was a fraction of a second, but Serena had spent 7 years learning the fractions in her husband's face. Palermo cannot be postponed. "Our son can?" Lucian crossed the room and placed his palm against her cheek. His thumb traced the bone beneath her eye, a gesture preserved from the years before the penthouse, before the armored cars, before men called at midnight and lowered their voices when she entered. 4 days, he said. 5 at most. I will be back before anything happens. The doctor said he could come tonight. Doctors say that because they are paid to make people cautious. The baby moved between them. Lucian felt it beneath his other hand and smiled. For one dangerous instant, Serena almost believed the smile meant more than the suitcases. "Call me when you land," she said. "Every hour, if you want. Just when you land." He kissed her forehead, then her mouth. The second kiss was brief and practiced. By the time the elevator doors closed, Serena could no longer smell his cologne, only the rain that had followed the suitcases inside. He never called when he landed. At noon the next day, Serena found the photograph. It appeared in a public post from a luxury travel account. The foreground showed a stone terrace, lemon trees, and the Mediterranean under a hard blue sky. In the background, beyond a set of open glass doors, Lucian sat at breakfast with a woman in white. The woman's bare foot rested against his ankle. His hand lay on the back of her chair. The image was blurred enough to protect a stranger and clear enough to destroy a wife. Serena enlarged it until the pixels broke apart. She recognized the line of Lucian's shoulders. She recognized the watch she had given him on their 5th anniversary. She recognized the intimacy of 2 people who had stopped worrying about being seen. Her coffee cooled beside her. She did not call him. She did not throw the cup. She did not summon one of the armed men stationed downstairs and demand an explanation from someone paid to lie for him. She called her younger sister. Elena arrived 30 minutes later with wet hair, a canvas bag, and the expression she had worn for years whenever Lucian's name entered a room. "How long have you known?" Serena asked. Elena stopped taking off her coat. That was answer enough. "Not about her," Elena said carefully. "About others. I never had proof. You were pregnant. And every time I tried to say something, you defended the schedule, the security, the meetings." "How long?" "At least 3 years." Serena placed both hands over the child beneath her ribs. He moved again, not gently. "Marcus Chen still practices family law?" Elena stared at her. "Yes?" "Call him." There was no drama in the decision. Drama belonged to people who still hoped noise could change the truth. Serena had spent years waiting for Lucian to remember the woman who had helped him build his first legitimate company from a rented Bronx kitchen. She had explained his accounts when bankers dismissed him, corrected contracts his expensive lawyers had missed, and sat beside his mother through the stroke that made him head of the Moretti organization at 26. Then, as his influence grew, Serena's intelligence became something he praised at dinner and ignored in practice. He gave her houses where she slept alone, jewelry chosen by assistants, guards who always knew where she was when her husband did not. By the time the first contraction came 3 nights later, the divorce petition was drafted. The pain began as pressure beneath her spine. Serena was in the nursery, folding a blue cotton blanket over the side of a crib that cost more than the rent on their first apartment. She checked the time. 11:48. At midnight, her water broke across the pale grey carpet. Elena drove her to Mercy General through rain so heavy the avenue disappeared beneath it. Lucian's security detail followed because Serena had not yet dismissed them. She wanted his people to see where she went. She wanted the information to reach him without requiring her voice. At 3:14 in the morning in New York, Marco Vitelli called Lucian in Sicily. Lucian was awake on the terrace, smoking above a sea turning grey. Bianca slept inside. She had poured wine after dinner and laughed when he checked his phone for the 3rd time. "Your wife has an entire city guarding her," she had said. "For one night, let someone else be responsible." Now Marco's name lit the screen. "Talk," Lucian said. "Serena is at Mercy General. Labor started around midnight. They moved her into delivery an hour ago." Lucian crushed the cigarette against the railing. "How fast?" "Fast enough that Elena called me instead of waiting for the hospital to do it." "Is Serena all right?" "She is in labor, Lucian." The correction was quiet. Marco had served him for 9 years and rarely used that tone. Lucian looked through the doors. Bianca had turned onto her side, one bare shoulder exposed above the sheet. "Keep me informed. I can have the plane ready in 40 minutes. Lucian looked at the black water. Palermo's private runway was less than an hour away. The flight would take 9 hours with favorable winds. He could leave now and still miss the berth. He could also leave now because missing less was not the same as choosing more. Then his phone vibrated with a second message. Danny Caruso, the organization's financial chief, had sent a warning about a shipment at Port Newark. If Lucian abandoned Sicily before a scheduled morning meeting, a fragile agreement with 2 European suppliers could collapse. Caruso called before Lucian could answer. "First labors take time," the older man said. "My wife was in labor 20 hours with our first. Finish the meeting, then fly. We cannot look unstable this week." Lucian heard what he wanted to hear. "Not yet," he told Marco. "Call when there is news." He hung up. At Mercy General, Serena gripped Elena's hand until both of them lost feeling in their fingers. The pain stripped the room down to white light, breath, and endurance. Between contractions, Serena stared at the chair beside her bed. It had been placed there for a husband. A nurse noticed her looking. "Is the baby's father coming?" Serena listened to rain strike the window. "No," she said. Down the corridor, another man shouted into a phone that his daughter had arrived. His voice cracked with joy. He kept repeating that she was perfect, as though everyone he had ever known needed to hear it at once. Serena closed her eyes. At 6:47 in the morning, Nico Moretti entered the world screaming. 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Dark hair, strong lungs, Lucian's jaw and Serena's eyes. The doctor placed him on Serena's chest. He was warm, furious, and so completely real that everything before him seemed badly constructed. "Hello," she whispered. "I am here." She had imagined Lucian beside her. In those imagined versions, he cried. She forgave things he had not admitted. Their son repaired what 2 adults had refused to repair themselves. But the chair remained empty. Serena pressed her lips to Nico's forehead, and a door closed inside her without making a sound. Marco called Sicily 15 minutes later. "You have a son," he said. "Nico. Born at 6:47. Serena and the baby are stable." Lucian stood in the villa kitchen with coffee untouched before him. Did she choose the name? She said she had chosen it 4 months ago. The meaning landed slowly. Serena had carried a private certainty through 4 months of marriage because she no longer trusted him with something as simple as a name. "Did she ask for me?" Marco was silent. "No." Bianca entered wearing a white robe and held out her empty cup. "Is it done?" Lucian looked at her. "My son was born." Her smile faltered, then returned in a softer form. "Congratulations." The word sounded obscene in her mouth. Lucian called for the plane. An hour after Nico's birth, A nurse brought the birth certificate worksheet and asked whether the father's name should be included. Serena looked at the chair again. "Yes," she said. "Lucian Moretti." Elena glanced at her, but Serena kept her attention on Nico. His father's absence does not get to become his first inheritance. When the nurse left, Serena wrote 6:47 a.m. in the blue notebook she had packed for feeding times. She drew one line beneath it. The numbers were not an accusation yet. They were simply the first fact of Nico's life. When he arrived, his mother had been there. Elena moved the empty chair away from the bed and laid Nico's folded blue blanket across it. By afternoon, the chair no longer looked as though someone was expected. It looked like a place Serena had learned not to reserve. He reached Mercy General 14 hours after Nico's birth. A jeweler in Palermo had opened early for him. The narrow velvet box in Lucian's pocket contained a bracelet of diamonds and blue sapphires, expensive enough to become the focus of any room where an apology failed. Elena sat beside the hospital window with her arms crossed. Serena held Nico against her chest. Lucian stopped inside the door. Serena looked up. "You came." Not thank God. Not finally. A factual observation. "Serena, I am sorry." The meeting ran longer than expected, and the flight. "Do not lie in front of our son." His prepared explanation died. Nico shifted in her arms. Lucian stared at the dark hair, the small cheek, the fist curled against Serena's gown. "May I hold him?" "Not yet." Lucian had faced armed men without blinking. Those two words took the strength from his hands. He placed the velvet box on the table. Serena did not look at it. Lucian's eyes moved to the blue blanket folded across the empty chair and then to the notebook beside Serena's water glass. The page was open. At the top, beneath one dark line, she had written 6:47, "And were you afraid?" he asked. Serena considered whether the question deserved an answer. Yes. The single word altered his face more than anger would have. "I said your name once during the worst contraction," she continued. "Not because I had forgiven you. Because pain makes the body reach for what it remembers. Then the nurse asked me who was coming, and I understood that memory was all you had left me." Lucian looked at the chair. "Elena was here?" "Elena was here. The nurse was here. A stranger in the corridor celebrated another baby loudly enough for me to hear him." Serena adjusted Nico's cap. "You were the only person the room had been prepared for who chose not to enter it." No apology could survive beside that sentence without becoming an attempt to comfort the person who had caused the wound. Lucian said nothing. "His name is Nico," she said. "He was born at 6:47. He weighed 7 pounds, 4 ounces. He screamed before the doctor finished lifting him. You missed all of it." Lucian sat in the plastic chair that had been empty through labor. "I know? No. You know the facts. I know what it cost." He stayed 3 hours. He held his son for 4 minutes, stiff with fear he disguised as care. When Nico began to cry, Serena took him back, and the ease of her movement made Lucian feel like a visitor watching a family through glass. Before leaving, he asked for one chance to explain Sicily. "Come tomorrow at noon," Serena said. "Tell the truth once. After that, I will decide what your voice is worth to me." He arrived the next day without flowers. The bracelet remained unopened where he had left it. Serena was alone with Nico. She indicated the chair but did not invite Lucian nearer. "How long?" she asked. He could have lied. The instinct rose instantly, polished by years of negotiations. Minimize. Redirect. Admit only what could be proven. He looked at his son and understood that every old method had brought him to this room. 3 years. Serena's face remained still. Only her hand tightened around the edge of the blanket. "So when I told you I was pregnant?" "Yes." "When we chose the nursery?" "Yes." "When you left the birthing class because of a meeting?" He said nothing. "Was it a meeting?" "No." She nodded once. "And when Marco told you I was in labor?" Lucian forced himself not to look away. "I was with her." "Did you know Nico might be born before morning?" "Yes." "Did anyone prevent you from leaving?" Caruso's message passed through his mind. The suppliers. The port. Bianca's shoulder beneath the sheet. "No." Serena looked down at Nico. "That is the only answer that matters. I ended it before I left Sicily." You ended an affair because its consequence finally had a face. Her eyes lifted. That is fear, Lucian. It is not change. He leaned forward. Give me time. I gave you 7 years. I can repair this. A marriage is not a port you can reopen. Then tell me what to do. Go. He stood slowly. Come back at 6, she said. We will discuss Nico and what happens next. Not us, Nico. I will be here. At 5:38, Danny Caruso called. Ferrante men had seized a Moretti pier at Port Newark, and 2 armed crews were moving toward each other. Lucian chose the port. At 9:12, he sat outside the hospital looking up at Serena's illuminated window. He could still have called. Instead, he began composing an explanation for a woman who had asked only that he arrive. Upstairs, Elena placed Thai food on the bedside table and looked at the empty chair. He had an emergency, Serena said. Elena took a thick folder from her bag. He will always have an emergency. The tabs were labeled in Eleanor's precise handwriting. Legal, identity, transit, medical, evidence. Serena looked at her sister. How long have you been preparing this? 4 months. Since the night you called me crying and pretended the next morning that you had not. Nico stirred in the bassinet. Lucian will search everywhere. Then we will not be where he expects a frightened woman to go. He has cameras, police contacts, airline records. And you helped build the systems he uses. Stop speaking as though you learned nothing while he underestimated you. Serena touched Nico's cheek. At 7 the next morning, she signed the divorce petition 8 times. Marcus Chen witnessed each signature. At 7:40, a nurse discharged her through the family consultation wing. At 7:52, a hospital camera lost power for 11 minutes because a young Moretti logistics coordinator named Tommy Reeves had decided there were loyalties more important than employment. At 8 o'clock, Serena left Mercy General with Nico and Elena in a grey sedan registered to a retired schoolteacher in Maryland. At 8:15, the sedan entered a parking garage in Queens. 3 women and a baby exited through another level in different clothes and entered a blue minivan. At 8:40, the minivan headed north while a decoy car carrying Serena's old phone drove toward Philadelphia. At noon, Lucian returned to the penthouse. The wedding ring lay in the center of the dining table beside the unopened bracelet from Sicily. Beneath them was a single sheet of paper. You chose where you wanted to be when our son entered the world. I am choosing the life in which he and I are never an afterthought. Do not confuse my silence with permission, Serena. Lucian read it 3 times. Then Marco entered through the kitchen and said, "She is gone." Lucian did not shout. The men who worked for him feared his silence more. Before he issued a single order, Lucian walked upstairs to the nursery. The room still smelled faintly of cedar and the lavender soap Serena used on the baby clothes. The carved crib stood beneath a painted moon. Boxes of gifts from men Lucian barely trusted covered one wall. A silver music box from Bianca sat unopened on the dresser, its white ribbon still tied. The blue blanket was gone. So were the diapers Serena had stacked by size, the plain cotton clothes she had washed herself, and the blue notebook she kept beside the rocking chair. She had taken only what Nico needed. Everything purchased to impress other people remained. Lucian touched the empty hook where the hospital bag had hung. For 7 years, he had treated Serena's competence as part of the architecture around him. Reliable, quiet, impossible to lose. The nursery showed him the error in physical terms. She had not fled in panic. She had removed a child from danger with the same precision she once used to protect his companies. On the shelf sat a framed photograph from the birthing class Lucian had left early. Serena was laughing at something outside the frame. His half of the chair beside her was empty. He turned the photograph face down. Then he returned downstairs and began issuing instructions in a voice so level that Marco watched him with open concern. Lucian's men checked every road, station, airfield, and camera they could reach. By nightfall, he knew exactly how Serena had left the hospital and nothing about where she had gone. "Find proof they are safe," he told Marco. "No one approaches her." "And after that?" Lucian looked at the ring on the table. "After that, I decide what I still have the right to ask." Before midnight, a second Sicilian photograph appeared online. This one showed Lucian kissing Bianca beneath the lemon trees less than 12 hours before Nico's birth. By morning, every Moretti captain and every rival family had seen it. A vanished wife was private failure. A vanished heir beneath a photograph of betrayal looked like a collapsing house. Danny Caruso arrived carrying reports about men already testing the walls. "How did the photograph leave a villa you secured?" Lucian asked. "We are tracing it. Find Bianca. She left Palermo 6 hours after you. Then trace faster." The failed hospital camera led to Tommy Reeves, the quiet logistics coordinator who had arranged Serena's first car. Tommy admitted it before Lucian finished asking. "Where did they go?" "I don't know. Mrs. Moretti made sure no one knew the whole route." "Why help her?" Tommy's fear sharpened into anger. "Because she knew my wife's name when she was sick. She sent food for 3 weeks. She found the specialist who saved my daughter's hearing. And because I was on the desk when Marco offered you a plane. I watched the request sit unanswered while she gave birth." Lucian gripped the back of Tommy's chair. "Careful. You asked why. The threat came easily. Acting on it would have been easier." Then Lucian remembered Serena's note downstairs. "Do not confuse my silence with permission." He released the chair. Tommy pointed to a second use of his access code, one he had not made. It had traveled through an old financial channel controlled by Caruso's division. "Tell Marco everything," Lucian said. "Then take your family out of New York." Tommy stared. "That is all? You no longer work for me." "I expected worse." "So did I." At the door, Tommy looked back. "She did not leave because she stopped loving you. It would probably be easier for her if she had." The old channel led to Bianca's empty Central Park apartment. Investigators found port routes, guard schedules, and one page torn from Serena's medical calendar. Nico's due date was circled in red. In a wiped phone, they recovered a message sent 3 minutes after Marco reported Serena's labor. "Keep him there until morning." Bianca had replied with a photograph of Lucian's jacket on the bedroom floor. Marco read it twice. "She engineered the night he was born." Lucian folded the medical page. "She created an opportunity. I made the choice. You did not know. Do not give me an excuse I did not earn." They found Bianca 2 days later in a private lounge at Kennedy Airport. She wore white and did not stand when Lucian approached. "You knew Serena was in labor," he said. Bianca lifted her drink. "And you stayed." The answer returned responsibility to the only place it belonged. "Who gave you her calendar? Ask why your wife's signature is worth more than your entire army. Ask why Danny Caruso has spent 2 years preparing New York for a future without you. You worked for him. With him. The photograph? Mine. The affair?" Something almost tender crossed her face. "That was ours." Lucian felt only shame at how easily he had confused secrecy with intimacy. Bianca leaned closer. "Years ago, you put the clean port companies in Serena's name to protect them from investigations. Danny cannot own your empire unless she signs. That is why the wife you ignored became the most valuable person in New York." The explanation was simple enough. Without Serena, Caruso could inherit guns and angry men, but none of the legal routes that made their power usable. "Where is she?" Bianca smiled. "If I knew, you would not still have a son." Lucian crossed the space between them and closed one hand around her throat. The guards in the lounge looked away. For 1 second, violence offered him the familiar relief of an answer that required no patience. Then he saw the empty hospital chair in his mind. He released her. "If you go near them," he said, "there will be no distance far enough." Bianca touched her throat. "You still think threats are the same as protection?" Lucian left without answering, because for the first time he knew she was right. In Providence, Serena knew none of this yet. She rented the 2nd floor of a narrow brick house under her maiden name, Serena Vale. The retired nurse downstairs left soup outside when Nico cried through 2 nights, and never asked why Eleanor checked every car before opening the door. Postpartum life reduced Serena's world to 2-hour intervals, bottles washed at 3 in the morning, damp blankets, and the terrifying habit of checking whether Nico still breathed. She did not feel powerful. She felt exhausted, furious, tender, and free. No guard waited outside the bathroom. No assistant chose her clothes. Nico's first real smile came at 7 weeks, while Serena sang badly over a sink full of bottles. Elena saw it, and they laughed until Serena cried. In the blue notebook, beneath 6:47 a.m., Serena wrote, 8:16 a.m. Nico smiled because his mother cannot sing. The pages filled with ordinary things Lucian would never be able to purchase back. 4 hours of sleep, eyes following light, the solemn frown before a sneeze. Marcus handled the divorce. Lucian did not contest temporary custody and sent money for Nico with no condition attached. Serena accepted what belonged to her son and nothing intended to soften her. Lucian sent no letters, flowers, or men. His absence became the first boundary he had ever respected. 9 weeks after the escape, a package appeared outside Serena's apartment. There was no postage. Inside lay a silver baby rattle and a photograph of Serena carrying Nico from the pediatric clinic 2 days earlier. On the back, someone had written, "A child cannot inherit what his mother refuses to preserve." Eleanor wanted to leave within 10 minutes. Serena examined the photograph first. It had been taken through glass from across the street. In the reflection, she saw part of a black sedan and the gold edge of a parking permit. "We leave," Elena said. "Yes. But not before we learn who believes frightening me will make me obedient." The following afternoon, Danny Caruso called the secure number Marcus used for legal contact. "I am trying to prevent bloodshed," he said. Serena recorded the call. "By photographing my child? By showing you that hiding is temporary? What do you want?" "A signature. Nothing more. The Moretti port companies belong legally to you. Transfer control to a neutral board, and I can guarantee you and Nico disappear from every dangerous man's interest. A board controlled by you and Dominic Ferrante." Caruso was quiet. Serena continued. "You sent the photograph from Sicily. Bianca sent it, on your instruction. Lucian created the photograph. We only allowed the world to see it. It was the kind of selective truth designed to sound like morality. And the night I gave birth? Your husband was offered a plane. That was not my question." Caruso sighed. "I reminded him what leaving the meeting would cost. He chose the woman in his bed. You should be angry at the man who made the choice, not the man who understood him well enough to predict it. I have enough anger for both. Sign, Serena." His voice hardened. "A mother signs faster than a widow. Do not make me prove it." The call ended. Serena replayed the last sentence once. Elena was already pulling suitcases from the closet. "We leave now." "Yes," Serena said, "but we do not leave frightened evidence behind." She slid the rattle into a clean freezer bag, photographed every surface of the package, and sent the images with the recording to Marcus. Then she lifted Nico from his bassinet and stood with him at the window, out of sight of the street. He slept against her as if the world had never used his name as a threat. For 9 weeks, Serena had treated escape as distance. Another road, another door, another name on a lease. Caruso had just shown her the weakness in that idea. A man who controlled the routes would always believe he controlled the destination. Running again might protect Nico for a night. It would not end the hunt. Serena opened the blue notebook. Beneath the entry about Nico's first smile, she wrote, "Caruso believes motherhood makes fear faster than thought." Then she underlined one word, believes. "What are you doing?" Elena asked. "Choosing who gets to be surprised next." Then she contacted Marcus and instructed him to send Lucian a single legal question. Did Danny Caruso have authority to negotiate on behalf of the Moretti companies? It was a flare placed carefully in the dark. Lucian answered within 4 minutes. "No, do not speak to Caruso again. Name a place. I will come alone." Serena chose the apartment. 3 months after Nico's birth, Lucian took a train from Manhattan to Providence with no guards, no weapon, and a copy of every record connecting Bianca to Caruso inside his coat. Eleanor opened the door. "If I see one man outside, you will not. If you try to take Nico, I will not." She searched him anyway. Serena waited in the kitchen. Jeans, dark sweater, hair loose around her shoulders. She looked tired. She also looked more like the woman Lucian had met in the Bronx than she had looked in years. He wanted to cross the room. He remained by the door. "Where is Nico?" "Sleeping." "Is he well?" Yes. Lucian nodded. Wanting more did not make more his right. Serena placed her phone on the table and played Caruso's threat. Lucian listened without moving. When the recording ended, the air around him seemed sharpened. "He found you before I did," he said. "I did not let you find me until today." The correction mattered. "You need to move." "I have moved 3 times. Caruso has been inside my organization 14 years. He knows safe houses, police contacts, judges, and the people who sell new identities. This is not a man you outrun with another lease." "And your answer is what? I return to a Moretti property and trust the same system that gave Bianca my medical calendar?" "No." Lucian placed the records on the table. "My answer is that you choose the place, the guards, and the rules. I provide what you request and nothing you do not." She looked down at the recovered message. "Keep him there until morning." For the first time, her composure cracked. Not much. A breath held too long. So it was planned. The opportunity was planned. Do you expect that to make it smaller? No. Lucian met her eyes. "Caruso gave me permission to be selfish. Bianca made selfishness pleasant. I still heard that you were in labor and chose not to leave. If I tell the story any other way, I am lying again." Serena studied him for a long moment. "Good," she said, "because he did not make you miss Nico. He only held the door open. You walked through it." "I know." A floorboard creaked overhead. Then came a soft cry. Lucian's entire body changed at the sound. Serena noticed. "Stay here." She went upstairs and returned with Nico against her shoulder. He was larger now, his dark eyes open and curious. Lucian stopped breathing. Serena did not offer the baby to him. She sat at the table and allowed Lucian to look. "He smiles now," she said. Lucian's voice was rough. "I heard." "From whom?" Elena answered one call. Elena, standing in the doorway, shrugged without apology. Lucian kept his hands on his knees. Outside, a car door closed. Lucian lifted the curtain 1 inch. A black sedan stood across the street with the same gold permit reflected in the photograph of Serena and Nico. "They are here," she said. Lucian turned. "How quickly can you leave?" Elena already had a bag in her hand. 90 seconds. Service stairs. Pharmacy alley. South End, Serena said. "I chose this apartment for a reason." The front door shuddered once beneath a controlled impact. Lucian did not reach for Nico. He looked at Serena and waited. "Take the blue bag," she said. He obeyed. The second impact cracked the frame. They reached the alley as the apartment door broke above them. 2 men appeared at the northern entrance. "South," Serena said. Lucian trusted her without asking why. The alley opened behind a bakery where a delivery van idled with its keys inside. "Keys," Serena said. Elena climbed in with Nico. Serena took the floor behind the seats while Lucian drove into traffic seconds before the sedan reached the alley. "They will trace the plate in minutes," Lucian said. "Then we need 6. Serena pointed left. "Church behind the fire station. Cameras at both entrances." "You planned all this?" "I planned never to be trapped with my child." At the church, they abandoned the van beneath municipal cameras and entered a women's shelter through a side door. The director, Mrs. Alvarez, recognized Serena from 2 volunteer shifts and locked the entrance without asking questions. Only then did Lucian call Marco. "Caruso found them," he said. "The Providence location is burned." "Where are you?" "I will tell you when I know this line is clean. I have been beside you 9 years. Caruso had 14. Give me a reason to trust you." Marco did not protest. "Give me an order. Go to the old Fulton office. In my father's safe there is a red ledger. Bring it to Assistant United States Attorney Claire Maddox. No copies, no calls." Put it in her hands. Silence. The red ledger did not merely expose Caruso. It contained enough evidence to dismantle the Moretti organization and convict Lucian with it. "If I do that," Marco said, "there is no reversing it. That is why I chose it. You could remove Caruso internally." Lucian looked across the church basement. Serena sat beside a folding table, feeding Nico beneath a borrowed blanket. Elena watched the door with a metal candlestick in both hands. "Internal solutions built the world my son had to disappear from," Lucian said. "I am finished preserving it. Maddox will arrest you. Then protect Serena under her rules." Marco was quiet. I will deliver it. Lucian ended the call and removed the battery from his phone. Serena had heard enough. The red ledger is real? Yes. You told me it was a story your enemies invented. I lied. How many people can it hurt? Including me? Especially you. Enough. She adjusted the blanket over Nico. And you gave it away. I finally gave Marco an order worth obeying. Mrs. Alvarez found them a shelter vehicle and a private recovery clinic outside New Haven. Serena chose the route and withheld the address until they were moving. Lucian accepted the condition. At the clinic, Serena occupied a small room overlooking bare winter trees. Lucian remained outside the door while Elena hired independent security. At 2 a.m, Nico began to cry. The sound continued for 20 minutes. Lucian sat in the corridor with his elbows on his knees, listening to Serena walk the room. He heard Elena offer to take the baby. Serena refused, then apologized. Exhaustion was stripping patience from all of them. The door opened. Serena stood there with Nico against her shoulder. He has eaten. He is dry. He does not have a fever. He simply objects to the world. Lucian rose. She looked at his hands, then at his face. Sit down, she said. He sat. Serena placed Nico in his arms. Lucian became absolutely still. Support his head. He adjusted one hand. Not like a piece of glass. He will feel your fear. I am not afraid. Nico screamed louder. Serena raised an eyebrow. I am reconsidering, Lucian admitted. For the first time since Mercy General, the corner of her mouth moved. Lucian held his son against his chest and stood. He walked slowly beneath the corridor's dim lights, speaking in a low voice about nothing. The snow predicted for morning, the radiator knocking in the walls, the fact that Nico's mother had always hated winter and somehow chosen New England. Nico's cries softened, then stopped. Lucian looked down. Nico's fist had closed around one of his shirt buttons. The expression on Lucian's face was not triumph. It was grief in its cleanest form. Love meeting the evidence of time lost. Serena saw it and did not rescue him from it. This does not change the divorce, she said. I know. It does not mean I trust you. I know. It means he needed sleep. Lucian looked at Nico. Then I am grateful he was tired enough to use me. Serena took the chair beside him but did not speak again. At dawn, Marco called the clinic. Maddox had the ledger, but she still needed Caruso tied directly to the threat against Serena. Serena took the receiver from Lucian. I have Caruso's recorded threat. Marco paused. Mrs. Moretti. Serena Vale. Understood. Serena looked at Lucian. They still need my signature. He knew what she was about to say. No. You asked me to choose the place and the rules, not to volunteer as bait. Hiding has moved Nico through 4 homes in 3 months. Caruso found every system built to protect us because he helped build the systems. The only thing he does not expect is for me to set the terms. Lucian's jaw tightened. He threatened to make you a widow. Technically, he threatened to make Nico fatherless. That distinction is not comforting. It is not intended to be. Serena chose an abandoned ferry terminal Caruso believed Ferrante controlled. Federal investigators already owned its cameras. She would carry unsigned transfers and force Caruso to speak. Lucian would remain out of sight. Nico's location would be kept from everyone, including him. Lucian found weaknesses. Serena revised the plan. For the first time in their marriage, his experience strengthened her decision without replacing it. At 8:30, Bianca called. You have become difficult to reach, she said. Serena sat at the clinic window. Lucian stood across the room, listening through a second receiver. You photographed my son. Danny did. I would have chosen better light. Did Lucian know you were working against him? Bianca laughed. Lucian rarely asked what women did when they were not pleasing him. The insult carried enough truth to survive exaggeration. Why me? Serena asked. Because you owned what he pretended to own. Because every old man at his table called you the wife while your name held the clean companies together. And because he loved you in the lazy way powerful men love what they assume cannot leave. Lucian did not move. Did he love you? Serena asked. Bianca's silence was brief but revealing. He chose me that night. No, he chose himself. You happened to be in the room. Bianca's voice cooled. Bring the signatures to the ferry terminal at 7. Come alone, or the next photograph will not show your child leaving a clinic. It will show where he sleeps." The call ended. Lucian set down the receiver. "She is wrong," he said. "About which part?" "I did love you." Serena's expression did not soften. Love that repeatedly asks another person to absorb its consequences is only appetite with a beautiful name. He took the sentence without defense. That afternoon, snow began to fall. Elena prepared to leave with Nico. At the clinic's rear entrance, Serena fastened his blue coat and kissed both cheeks until he protested. "If anything feels wrong, you do not wait for my call," Serena told Elena. "You keep moving. You are coming back." "That is the plan." "I did not ask about the plan." Elena gripped her sister's wrist. "You are coming back." Serena looked at Nico, then at her. "Yes." Lucian remained several feet away. Elena looked at him. "Do you want to say goodbye?" It was more grace than he expected. He approached slowly. Serena transferred Nico into his arms. Lucian looked at his son for a long time. "Your mother is the bravest person I know," he said. "You should believe her before you ever believe me." Serena's eyes changed, but the moment passed before either of them named it. He gave Nico back. The vehicle disappeared into the snow. At 6:45, Serena entered the ferry terminal wearing a dark coat and carrying a leather folder. The waiting hall had once served hundreds of commuters. Now salt clouded the windows, rows of metal seats faced an empty ticket counter, and the sea struck the pilings beneath the floor. Danny Caruso stood near the center of the room. Bianca waited beside him in white. 4 men occupied the exits. "You came," Caruso said. "You threatened my child." "Threats are simply promises nobody wants delivered." Serena placed the folder on a table. "Show me your men have withdrawn." Caruso opened a tablet. The screen displayed 4 photographs. The Providence apartment empty, the pediatric clinic unwatched, Marcus Chen entering his office safely, and Elena's vehicle on a highway. Serena's blood went cold at the final image. She did not show it. "You are still following my sister." "Insurance." "Then there is no agreement." Bianca moved behind Serena and closed the terminal's main doors. "There was never an agreement," she said. "There was a signature and the amount of pain required to obtain it." Caruso slid a pen across the table. "Sign the 3 marked pages. Control transfers at midnight. You keep enough money to raise Nico anywhere in the world. Lucian keeps breathing if he is intelligent enough to stay away. And Ferrante takes New York. Ferrante takes the visible chair. I take the organization away from men who confuse inheritance with competence." Serena opened the folder. "You used my labor to weaken Lucian. I used Lucian to weaken Lucian. You told him he had time." Caruso's face remained calm, and he wanted to believe me. "You sent Bianca to Sicily. I gave her information. He bought the ticket. You released the photograph. The camera did not create the kiss. Each answer was a knife sharpened from truth." Serena looked at Bianca. "And you copied my medical schedule." Bianca leaned against the table. He left his secure phone unlocked while he showered. For a man obsessed with loyalty, Lucian was careless around anyone who made him feel admired. "Did you ever intend to stay with him?" "No." "Did he promise you he would leave me?" "More than once." Serena felt the words land. She did not let them steer her. "What did he say?" Bianca looked pleased by the question. "That after the baby came, he would put you in one of the houses and make the separation generous. He said you were practical. That you had survived being alone for years and would survive being told the truth." For one instant, the terminal disappeared. Serena saw Lucian in Sicily arranging her grief like a property settlement while she folded Nico's blanket at home. Then the cold room returned. "He mistook endurance for consent," she said. "He still came to me." "Yes. Your manipulation does not reduce his betrayal. It only explains why you were patient enough to profit from it." Caruso tapped the pen against the table. "Your marriage is not the purpose of this meeting." "Then why did you need to break it?" Serena asked. His eyes narrowed. She continued before he could stop her. "A wife in labor made Lucian choose. A public photograph made his captains doubt him. My disappearance made Ferrante move early. You did not need an affair. You needed a succession crisis." Bianca glanced at Caruso. The glance was an answer. "Danny promised Ferrante the visible chair," Serena said, looking at Bianca. "What did he promise you?" Bianca's confidence thinned. Caruso stepped between them. Enough. Serena understood then. Bianca had been useful enough to enter every locked room and disposable enough to receive no chair when the doors closed. "Thank you," she said. Bianca frowned. "For what? For saying it clearly enough for the microphones?" The lights went out. Not part of the plan. Emergency lamps ignited red along the walls. One of Caruso's men tore open Serena's coat and ripped away the transmitter taped beneath her collar. Caruso crushed it under his shoe. "Federal cameras," he said. "Predictable. I had the exterior feed cut 3 minutes ago." He drew a pistol. "Where is Nico?" Serena kept her eyes on him. "Beyond your reach." "Nobody is beyond reach." He turned the tablet toward her again. Elena's vehicle remained on screen, now stopped beside a dark road. "My men will take the child unless you sign in the next 60 seconds. Bianca placed the pen in Serena's hand. Serena looked at the image. The vehicle was correct. The timestamp was current. But the rear window carried a round blue shelter sticker Mrs. Alvarez had placed on the first vehicle, not the replacement Elena had driven from the clinic. It was a staged photograph. Caruso did not know where Nico was. 40 seconds, Caruso said. Serena let her hand tremble. Bianca mistook it for fear and moved closer. "Sign. No husband is coming to rescue you this time." "I did not come to be rescued." "Then why come?" Serena looked from Bianca to the shattered transmitter beneath Caruso's shoe. "Because men like Danny only tell the whole truth after they believe a woman has run out of choices." Caruso pressed the pistol against the folder. 30 seconds. Serena thought of Nico asleep in his blue coat. She thought of the line in her notebook. Caruso believes motherhood makes fear faster than thought. Fear was fast. That did not mean it had to arrive first. Serena lowered the pen to the paper. She signed the first page with a name that was not hers. Serena Vale. Bianca saw it. "That is not the legal signature." "No," Serena said. "It is the only name I answer to now." The side doors exploded inward under a steel emergency ram. Lucian entered through smoke and red light, with Marco beside him and federal agents behind them. Caruso seized Serena and pressed the pistol beneath her jaw. Every weapon in the room rose. "One step," Caruso said, "and she dies." Lucian stopped. "Let her go. Give me the ledger. Maddox already has it." For the first time, Caruso's control broke. "You gave them your own ledger?" "Yes." "It destroys you." "Yes." 11 years. Your father's name. Every port, every captain, every favor. You burned it for a woman who filed for divorce. Lucian looked at Serena, not at the gun. "I burned it because my son should not have to disappear to survive my name." Bianca moved toward a side passage. Marco blocked her. Caruso dragged Serena backward toward the old boarding ramp. Wind drove snow through broken glass. Below them, black water struck concrete. "You think surrender makes you good?" Caruso shouted. "No." "You think one sacrifice balances Sicily?" "No." "Then what does this buy?" "Nothing." Lucian's voice was steady. "That is why it counts." Serena drove the metal edge of the folder into Caruso's wrist. The pistol fired into the ceiling. Lucian crossed the distance, pulled Serena away, and struck Caruso hard enough to send him against the railing. The weapon slid across the floor. Caruso lunged for it. Lucian reached it first. He aimed at the man who had dismantled his organization, threatened his son, and turned the worst decision of his life into strategy. Caruso spread his hands. "Do it. Prove none of this changed you." Lucian's finger rested on the trigger. Then Serena said his name. Not as a plea for Caruso, as a warning about the man Lucian might still choose to be. Lucian lowered the pistol. "Nico will inherit enough from me," he said. "He will not inherit this answer." He placed the weapon on the floor and stepped away. Federal agents took Caruso down. Bianca tried to run through the ticket office. Marco caught her at the outer door. She fought until the handcuffs closed, then looked at Lucian across the ruined terminal. "You will lose everything," she said. "I lost everything at 6:47 in the morning," he answered. "This is only the bill arriving." Assistant United States Attorney Claire Maddox entered with 2 agents. She was small, grey-haired, and unimpressed by every dangerous man in the room. "Lucian Moretti," she said. You understand the ledger includes evidence against you. I wrote half of it. Then you understand you are not walking out free. Serena looked at him. He did not search her face for rescue. I understand. Maddox signaled an agent. Before the handcuffs closed, Lucian removed the watch Serena had given him on their 5th anniversary. He placed it on the table beside the unsigned transfer papers. The second hand moved past 6:47. Do not give that to Nico, he told Serena. I wore it while wasting too much of his time. Then he held out his wrists. The ferry terminal ended the war in less than an hour. The consequences took years. Caruso's files matched the red ledger. Ferrante was arrested before dawn, and Bianca pleaded guilty when confronted with the Sicily messages and Serena's stolen medical calendar. Nothing in her confession changed the truth. Bianca had built the room. Lucian had chosen to remain inside it. Lucian gave Maddox every company, account, and name the ledger opened. He asked for no immunity. He asked only that assets Serena had kept legally separate remain available to Nico. The records proved they were clean. He pleaded guilty to conspiracy, financial crimes, and obstruction. His cooperation reduced the sentence to 42 months. At sentencing, Lucian said only, I believed consequences were things powerful men arranged for other people. Regret is not a defense, and I accept mine. He did not mention Serena or turn accountability into a performance of love. She watched from the last row because the case affected her son. When Lucian was led away, he did not look back. The divorce became final 6 weeks later. Serena retained full custody, and any future contact with Nico required her consent and professional supervision. Lucian signed without objection. He did not ask her to wait. He sent one letter through Marcus. Serena, I will not ask you to forgive me. I will not call the night Nico was born a mistake, because a mistake is a moment and I made choices for years. The only promise I can make without placing another burden on you is that I will tell him the truth when he is old enough to ask. Not Bianca's part, not Caruso's part. Mine. Lucian. Serena placed the letter in a locked box with the court documents and Nico's hospital bracelet. She did not answer. She moved to Providence permanently. Not into hiding this time. She rented an office above a bookstore and opened a small risk consulting practice under her own name. Her first clients were legitimate shipping companies trying to untangle themselves from Moretti contracts. Later came women whose spouses controlled businesses, bank accounts, security systems, and every door out of their lives. Serena did not rescue them. She showed them where their choices had been hidden. Nico grew in ordinary ways. He learned to crawl toward electrical outlets and away from every toy purchased for his benefit. He said light before he said mother. He hated peas, loved rain, and laughed whenever Elena pretended to sneeze. Serena kept recording everything in the blue notebook. Lucian spent Nico's first birthday in federal custody. Marcus delivered a package from him. No jewelry, no expensive toy, only a handwritten children's story about a small fox who kept arriving after the moon had risen and had to learn that love meant leaving before sunset. Serena almost returned it. Instead, she read it once and stored it unopened from Nico's view. The story was not access. It was evidence of effort. She was allowed to recognize effort without rewarding it. 6 months later, she permitted Lucian to receive 4 photographs through the prison's family program. In the first, Nico stood beside a birthday cake with icing on both hands. In the second, he slept beneath the blue blanket from the old nursery. In the third, he looked directly into the camera with Lucian's dark, serious eyes. In the fourth, Serena was not visible, but her hand steadied Nico's shoulder at the edge of the frame. Lucian kept all 4 photographs inside the same book. He wrote to Nico once a month. Serena read every letter first. The early ones described harmless things. The weather, a bird outside the narrow window, the vegetable garden maintained by men who argued about tomatoes. He never told Nico that his mother had kept them apart. He never described prison as a sacrifice made for love. He wrote, I am here because I broke laws and hurt people. Your mother made sure you were safe. Both sentences are true. When Nico was 2, he pointed to one of the approved photographs and asked, Who? Serena had prepared for anger. She had not prepared for one syllable asked over breakfast. "That is your father," she said. "Where?" "Far away." "Why?" "Because he made choices that had consequences." Nico considered this with the solemnity of a child deciding whether a new word belonged in his world. "He come?" "Not yet." She did not say never. That winter, supervised video calls began. 10 minutes each. Lucian never missed one. He did not use them to speak to Serena except to say hello and thank you. He let Nico show him toy cars, drawings, and objects held so close to the camera that they became fields of color. On the 5th call, Nico said, "Papa, look," and lifted a wooden boat. Lucian's face changed. He recovered before the child noticed. Serena noticed. Redemption did not require her to forget the empty chair at Mercy General. It required her to judge the man in front of Nico by what he did consistently, especially when there was no reward waiting. Lucian completed his sentence when Nico was 3 years and 8 months old. He left federal custody with 1 suit, 1 box of letters, and no organization waiting at the gate. Marco had served a shorter sentence for his cooperation and now managed a legal freight company in New Jersey. He offered Lucian a position. Lucian accepted work overseeing warehouses instead of owning them. He rented a modest house in Connecticut with a small yard. The lease was in his own name. There were no guards, hidden rooms, or companies layered between him and the address. He told Serena where he lived through Marcus. He did not ask for a visit. 3 months passed. Lucian worked. He attended counseling required by the court and continued after the requirement ended. He paid restitution. He declined every invitation from men who wanted the old Moretti name attached to a new arrangement. Then, on a Saturday morning in September, his phone rang. "Hello?" For a moment there was only breathing. Then Nico's voice said, "Papa?" Lucian sat down on the back step. "I am here." "Mama says park." Serena took the phone. "He has been asking for 2 weeks." "You do not have to explain." "I am not explaining. I am setting terms." "All right. Blackstone Park, next Saturday at 10. The playground near the river. Eleanor and the child specialist will be there." "I understand. This is not forgiveness, Lucian." "I know. It is not a path back to our marriage." "I know." It is one morning. He looked across the yard, where maple leaves had begun turning red at their edges. "One morning is more than I have earned." Serena was silent. "Do not say that to Nico," she said finally. "He does not need your shame. He needs your stability." Lucian closed his eyes. Even now, she saw more clearly than he did. 10 o'clock, he said. "Do not be late." The words moved through him with the force of a verdict. "I will not be late." Lucian arrived at Blackstone Park at 9:27. He wore a navy sweater and carried nothing. No gifts that demanded gratitude. No flowers meant for Serena. No expensive object to stand between him and the harm money had never repaired. He sat beside an empty swing and waited. At 9:58, Serena appeared along the river path with Elena and a dark-haired boy in a red coat. Nico saw Lucian first. He stopped walking. Lucian stood but did not approach. For 3 seconds, father and son looked at each other across the playground. Then Nico ran. Lucian dropped to one knee as the child collided with him. His arms closed around Nico carefully, as though he remembered Serena's instruction from the clinic. "Not like glass. Children can feel your fear." Nico pulled back and examined his face. "You are bigger on the phone," he announced. Lucian laughed once, and the sound broke in the middle. "You are, too." Nico took his hand and dragged him toward the swings. Lucian looked at Serena before moving. She gave one small nod. Permission. He lifted Nico into the seat and waited again. "Push," Nico ordered. Lucian pushed gently. "Higher." He looked at Serena. "A little," she said. For 20 minutes, Lucian followed instructions from a 3-year-old with the seriousness he had once reserved for wars. Nico laughed into the cold air. Elena stood near the river with the specialist, pretending not to watch Serena. Lucian did not ask for more time when the hour ended. He helped Nico into his coat and knelt to fasten the zipper. "Will you come next Saturday?" Nico asked. Lucian's eyes lifted to Serena. She walked closer. "We will discuss it," she said. Nico frowned. "That means maybe." "It means your mother decides what keeps you safe," Lucian said. and I listen." Nico accepted this more easily than his father once would have. Serena studied Lucian. The grey at his temples was heavier. The old stillness remained, but it no longer demanded that the world arrange itself around him. "You are becoming the father he deserves," she said. Lucian looked toward their son. "That is enough. It has to be." There was no cruelty in her answer, only truth. Nico ran back to hug him once more. Lucian held him, released him when the child pulled away, and watched Serena lead him toward the river path. Halfway down it, Nico turned. 10 o'clock, he shouted. Lucian looked at Serena. This time, her nod was almost a smile. 10 o'clock, Lucian called back. Years earlier, he had been 5,000 miles away when his son entered the world at 6:47 in the morning. He had known Serena needed him, and chosen a room where nothing was required except desire. Now he stood beside an empty swing with no empire, no wife, and no right to demand a second chance. But he had arrived early. He had waited to be invited. And when the woman he betrayed opened the smallest door into their son's life, Lucian did not mistake it for forgiveness. He understood it for what it was, a responsibility. This time, he intended to be there before it arrived.